Please welcome Joe Rubenthal.
Payback time. It seems like pretty much everybody here knows me and knows that that's not the way I'm going to do this. Thank you all who just spoke for the kind remarks and for being here today. Thanks to everybody for being here today. It's really special for me to see all of you, and I want to tell you that I really appreciate you being here, and I appreciate the work that you've done to make affordable housing available and affordable to people in California and around the country. I've only been able to do this because of the work that you've done, and I appreciate everything that you've done. I grew up in a rural part of upper New York State on a chicken farm. I went to high school with a graduating class of 34. I was a physics major, math major when I first went to college and switched to physics, and then kind of got tired of that and came to Berkeley in a PhD program in biophysics, and that's how I arrived here. I left school after getting arrested in People's Park protests and getting drafted to fight in Vietnam. I did some community organizing and became chair of my neighborhood association. That neighborhood group took control over a development and sponsored a new affordable housing project that's called Saddle Island. You may have heard about that. I was also working on local government structural reform, where I met a guy named Jack Kent. Jack was a professor at UC Berkeley, and he convinced me to go back to school and get a master's in city and regional planning. I should say that Lonnie appointed me to a commission, which is where I met Jack Kent. Jack's guidance put me on a career path that I didn't have before. Eve Bach was already working at Community Economics when I arrived the day after getting my master's degree. And a couple of weeks later, Eve took me to the woodshed, so to speak, to talk to me about the importance of integrity. I've never forgotten the advice that Eve gave me and have held it close to my heart all these many years. 39 years later, I think I can say that at least I tried to live up to Eve's standard she set for me and for the organization. I wanted you to know that I didn't arrive here of my own accord. Jack and Eve were kind of my guiding lights. I didn't come to this work knowing a whole hell of a lot about affordable housing and the ins and outs of development and financing. I learned from experience and from the teams involved in each project, the staff of the sponsors, the lawyers, the accountants, the investors, the appraisers, and the public agency staff who were all involved in each and every deal. Thank you for sharing your experience and expertise with me. It made me more effective in my work. The sponsors are really the backbone of our industry and our movement. I want to specifically thank the sponsors for trusting me and trusting Community Economics to assist you in the work that you do. You do the important work. We're just there to help. Community Economics has touched about 1,000 projects since I started doing this work. While I've been involved in many, there were other people, obviously, who've done an important part of this work. Janet Falk, Alice Talcott, Kevin Knudsen, Alyssa Dennis, now Diana Downey. You've taught me, you've been there with me, you've shared your work, your ideas. Those have been incredibly important to me. And they've helped me learn and helped me do a better job. And so thank you for that. And Linda Rivers has been our office manager for the last 25 years. Linda has done everything that the rest of us didn't do to keep the organization going. Of course, the work of any nonprofit is dependent on the quality of the organization of the board of directors. CEI has been blessed with the dedicated and visionary board members who have supported the staff and provided enough oversight to keep us moving forward, but not so much as to interfere with our day-to-day work. Thank you to the board of directors, current and past. As I look back at my time on CEI, there are 2 public policy successes that people have talked about. Doing the state low-income housing tax credit program that Natalie talked about. And I wanted to say here, thank you, Natalie, for trusting me and for working with me because without you, I could never have gotten it done. As far as the Federal Exchange Program, $5 billion, 90,000 units nationally, wow. But I didn't do it alone. There were people who helped all around the country. There were 3 people here who were involved: Barry Zegas, Matt Schwartz, and Bill Paveo. So thank you guys for your help. There's no magic solution to making affordable housing available or affordable. Every project is difficult, and the resources needed aren't ever easy to obtain. We have struggled to obtain resources at every level. We've had to fight to keep them flowing locally, at the state level, and nationally. But unfortunately, we can't build our way out of the crisis that exists in the Bay Area and coastal California. But there are things that we could be doing better. So, in homage to David Letterman, here are my top policy goals that I hope that we can accomplish together. And in deference to Olson Lee, I'm going to try to be more politic in the way that I describe these things, more politic than my usual approach. So we need to increase the size of the pie. That's just always so important. And AB 35 and AB 1335, if they are passed, signed into law by the governor, will help tremendously. And revising and fixing Prop 13 is incredibly important to our industry going forward. We need to maximize the short-term and especially the long-term benefit of the investments that we make as taxpayers. This means looking at life cycle costs, not just the cost of units on day one. It means looking at the benefit to tenants over the life of the housing, not just whether the units meet the minimum regulatory requirements. We don't know, we have had to find, it's funny, but the light is really terrible. And I wrote this out so that I wouldn't screw it up. We don't know, but we have to find out if lower upfront costs are really just a postponement of costs that will come due later. I expect that we will learn that cheap doesn't maximize long-term public benefits. We need to reward sponsors who do a good job by providing services and keeping rents as low as possible. Conversely, sponsors who milk the projects and don't do a good job of maintenance and squeeze every penny out should be penalized. We need to require rights of first refusal and limitations on distributions for all publicly assisted projects to ensure the best long-term stewards end up in ownership. Maintaining the projects must take priority over distributions to owners. We need to ensure that the property tax welfare exemption that somebody mentioned, or I guess Kevin mentioned, that I've been on this one for a long time. I'm still on it, and I'm not going to give it up. We need to ensure that the property tax welfare exemption actually goes to the benefit of the tenants, not just during the first years, but for the entire, but for as long as the exemption is in place. We need to find a way to serve the lowest income households, those with the greatest need, by either cross-subsidizing within projects or obtaining dedicated operating subsidy. Tax benefits should be all that investors are permitted to take from projects. Sponsors should get enough of a developer fee to ensure their solvency. At the same time, we need to be sensitive to portfolios to ensure that sponsors can allocate resources where needed, where most needed, and reward sponsors for serving the most needy. Housing should be treated, this is the ultimate one. Housing, well, you know where it's going. Some of you may know. Housing should be treated as a utility, and market rents should be regulated. It's depressing to think that an equal or greater amount of economic benefit to tenants that we have worked so hard to accomplish could have been done by the stroke of a pen if the political leaders had had the vision and support to pass next generation rent control. It doesn't make our work any less, it doesn't make our work futile. or any less important, but good quality rent control will help stem the runaway costs of market rate housing. So while we are advocating for policies and resources to generate more affordable rental housing, keep in mind the importance of helping all the low-income households that we can't serve, at least until we can develop enough affordable housing to serve everyone who has an unmet need. I'm reminded of a quote from Helen Keller: "Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much." Thank you all for being here.